Tyson Fury has repeatedly said over the past year or so that he is the man who beat the man who beat the man, going all the way back to the days of John L. Sullivan. This is not me misquoting Tyson Fury. This is not me taking what he said out of context. This is not me misinterpreting it. He has said this on numerous occasions in public, several different interviews, where he specifically states, I'm the man who beat the man who beat the man, going all the way back to John L. Sullivan. Now, why do I have a problem with this statement? Well, it's very simple. I have a problem with this statement because it's completely untrue. That's not up for debate. That is a cold, hard fact. He's not the man who beat the man going all the way back to John L. Sullivan. Nobody can claim in the past few decades to be the man who beat the man going back to John L. Sullivan, because the lineage of the heavyweight title has been broken on numerous occasions. Lennox Lewis can't claim to be the man who beat the man going back to John L. Sullivan. Lewis's lineage goes back as far as Floyd Patterson. Tyson Fury's lineage only goes far as back as Vladimir Klitschko. And even then, there is debate about whether Vladimir Klitschko actually started a new lineage. There's debate around that. Anybody claiming that there is a definitive way to start a new lineage is lying to you. That's what they're doing. They're lying. Was Vladimir Klitschko seen as the consensus best heavyweight in the world for several years? Yes, he was. I'm not here to tell you that Vladimir Klitschko didn't start a new lineage. I'm just here to tell you that it's up for debate because he was never undisputed champion. He never fought his brother. I don't blame him for not fighting his brother. Brothers shouldn't be fighting each other in boxing rings. But be that as it may, we had a split heavyweight title picture since Lennox Lewis retired. In fact, before that really, but in terms of starting a new lineage, we had a split picture because we didn't have an undisputed. So you can certainly make a strong case that Vladimir started a new lineage. I got no problem with you making that case. But don't act like your criteria and your definition of how to start a new lineage is somehow set in stone and can't be debated. There is no overarching governing body which decides the criteria for starting a new lineage. There isn't one. Because the lineal title is a fictional title. That's a fact. It's a fictional title. It doesn't exist. There is no lineal belt. I've heard some deeply ignorant people in recent years running around claiming that the Ring Magazine Championship is a lineal belt. No, it's not. Adonis Stevenson was stripped of his Ring Magazine belt. How about that? But he remained lineal champion. You can't be stripped of the lineal championship. You can only lose it in the ring. That's what everybody says, right? The Ring Magazine belt is not the lineal championship. Tyson Fury doesn't have the Ring Magazine belt right now. There is no lineal governing body with a clearly defined set of criteria about how you start a new lineage. There isn't one now, and there never has been one. That means the criteria for starting a new lineage is up for debate, just as it says here in this Wikipedia article, and rightly so, because it's just documenting the fact that there is ambiguity. It says here, there is no agreed upon method of determining the starting point for each lineage and conflicting opinions on what to do when the current champion retires or moves to a different weight class. Facts. That's why we're here, because we're debating. So again, I don't have an issue with people saying Fury is lineal, as long as you acknowledge that his lineage only goes back as far as Lennox Lewis. And it certainly don't go all the way back to John L. Sullivan in terms of being the man who beat the man, as Tyson Fury's been claiming. So Fury is either badly misinformed or he's intentionally lying. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide which one you think it is. Has he just misunderstood and doesn't realize that the lineage was broken when Lewis retired? And that one only went back to Patterson anyway. Or, in the words of his own promoter, is he conning the fans? You guys decide on that. Now, the only issue I really have with Tyson Fury's very short lineage, which goes back to Klitschko, the only issue I have is that people are still trying to make out as though being lineal champion makes you the most legitimate champion. That all the other guys who are not lineal, they're not really the men to beat. You, as the lineal, you're the man to beat. The other belts and all that kind of stuff doesn't matter, and that there is a consensus view that the lineal champion is always the man to beat. This is provably untrue, a straight up lie. I saw some absolute donut who posted something on Twitter claiming that Mike Tyson wasn't seen as the real champion. He wasn't seen as the man in the division until he beat Michael Spinks. Total rubbish. The overwhelming majority of the public. You see, people who make statements like that, most of these people weren't even born when Mike Tyson fought Michael Spinks. They certainly weren't watching boxing. They certainly weren't watching the Michael Spinks fight against Tyson. Talking about stuff they know nothing about. You know, we can all go back and talk about stuff that, you know, didn't happen when we were alive or that we didn't witness. Yeah, we can all do that. But I like to go from personal experience where possible. And I was around in the late 1980s watching boxing. I did witness a prime Mike Tyson. Not on YouTube, decades after the fact. No, at the time. So I can speak from firsthand experience when I tell you that Mike Tyson was seen as the man by the overwhelming majority of the public, the overwhelming majority of boxing writers, and the overwhelming majority of people within the industry, boxing people themselves, promoters, trainers, etc. Tyson was seen as the man by the overwhelming majority. There was a sizable minority, maybe 20%, 25%, in terms of the public, who felt like Spinks still had a claim to be the man. But most people felt it was Tyson. Now, why? Why did people think Tyson was the man, even though he wasn't lineal? Very simple. Because Michael Spinks took on Larry Holmes twice in two controversial fights, particularly the rematch. And he got two contentious decisions over Holmes. After that, he fought some absolute donut to defend his IBF belt, and then he gave up his belt rather than fight real contenders like Tony Tucker, who was his mandatory at the time, and rather than take part in the HBO heavyweight tournament, which had people like Mike Tyson and Tony Tucker in it. Let me show you something. Michael Spinks' record here. You see the two fights with Larry Holmes. This is the guy that he defended his IBF belt against. Some absolute no-hoper. Then he gave up his belt instead of fighting Tony Tucker and taking part in the HBO tournament, and defended against Jerry Cooney, who had been very inactive for several years and was definitely nowhere near as dangerous a fight as Tony Tucker. This is why he wasn't taken as seriously by most of the public as Mike Tyson was, because he wasn't fighting the people who Tyson was fighting. Mike Tyson he beat Trevor Berbick, someone Spinks never beat. He beat Bone Crusher Smith, someone Spinks never beat. He beat Pinkland Thomas, who was one of the most highly regarded and highly rated heavyweights in the division at the time. Spinks never beat him. He beat Tony Tucker, the man Spinks ducked and gave up his IBF title to avoid facing. He beat Tyrell Biggs, the Olympic gold medalist, beat Holmes 2, beat Tony Tubbs. So by the time that Tyson and Spinks fought, Mike Tyson had a way better resume at heavyweight than Michael Spinks. A way better resume. He had done far more to prove himself as a legitimate force as a heavyweight champion than Michael Spinks had done. Far more. And that is why, if you go to the Wikipedia page, okay, I'm giving you guys resources because a lot of people, oh, Hatman's lying, he's making things up. Oh, I'll give you resources for you to go look at for yourselves. Because I've spoken about this Tyson Spinks situation many times, and I haven't given you the resources on screen for you to go verify and check for yourself. So I've done some Googling and I've found the resources. Spinks entered the ring against Mike Tyson as a 4-1 underdog. Why was he a 4-1 underdog if he was seen as the man in the division? Why? Because he wasn't seen as the man in the division. He was 4-1 because the overwhelming majority of people, in the public at least, felt that Mike Tyson was going to win. And certainly the bookies felt that Mike Tyson was going to win. It felt like Tyson was the man. He was the more proven heavyweight. This lineal status didn't fool the bookies. They went with the man with the much better resume at heavyweight. Spinks was a great light heavyweight champion. Take nothing away from Michael Spinks as light heavyweight champion. But as a heavyweight champion, his resume was weak. He had 2 contentious wins over an aging Larry Holmes. The second fight particularly very controversial. And then he took on soft opposition. Gave up his IBF title. Didn't partake in the HBO heavyweight tournament. Didn't fight all the top contenders, which Mike Tyson did do. So by the time they fought, no, Tyson was seen as the man. Not the guy who's been running around fighting jokers. Look at this. The Cooney fight was advertised as the world for the world heavyweight title, even though there was no belt on the line. So Butch Lewis, Michael Spinks' promoter, was doing a similar thing to Frank Warren and Tyson Fury today, hyping up the lineal status. I'm the true heavyweight champion because I'm the man who beat the man. And unlike Tyson Fury, Michael Spinks actually had a lineage that went back several decades as heavyweight champion because he was the man who beat the man going all the way back to Patterson, yes. But even still, he was running around claiming he was the world heavyweight champion, the real world heavyweight champion, when he ducked all the top contenders, gave up his belt to avoid. See, this is why being a champion of a sanctioning body, particularly if you've got all the belts, that is far more legitimate than just being a lineal champion with no belts. Because when you're a lineal champion with no belts, you can go ahead and fight Stefan Tangstad and Jerry Cooney and still claim that you're the lineal champion. Whereas Mike Tyson, he had to go and fight the top contenders. He had to go fight mandatory challengers as undisputed champion. He couldn't hide behind his lineal status and just be fighting jokers. Same with George Foreman. George Foreman, after he beat Michael Moorer, look at the guys he was fighting, people. You know, this is the time from 95 onwards when Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield, Ray Mercer, so on and so forth. This is when these guys were active. And George Foreman, as lineal champion, has taken on Axel Schultz, Crawford Grimsley, Lou Savarese, Shannon Briggs. Now, Shannon Briggs went on to be a decent heavyweight, but at the time he was seen as food. This was not long after Shannon Briggs' loss to Darrell Wilson. This is what you can do as lineal champion. You can go and fight a bunch of jokers and run around and claiming you're the real champion. No. Who the real champion is and why you can make a decent case that Vladimir Klitschko did start a new lineage is who has the best resume, who's beaten the most top names, who's had the most championship fights. Michael Spinks. Michael Spinks had 3 championship fights at heavyweight before facing Tyson. That's it. 3 championship fights. 2 of them were against the same man. Mike Tyson, on the other hand, going into the Spinks fight, had had how many championship fights? Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He'd had over double the number of championship fights that Michael Spinks had had at heavyweight prior to them facing off in the ring. And not only had he had more than double the number of championship fights at heavyweight that Spinks had, he'd been fighting a much, much tougher level of opposition than Spinks had after Spinks became champion. You see, this is why this whole lineal thing is overblown. It's just a hype marketing tool. That's all it is. If you want to say Vladimir's lineal or was lineal, cool. If you want to say Tyson Fury is lineal today, cool. But understand, he only goes back as far as Vladimir. That's it. He's not the man who beat the man going back to John O'Sullivan. And being lineal champion does not make you the most legitimate champion. No, it doesn't. Having the best resume at championship level, beating the most top contenders and belt holders, that's what makes you the most legitimate champion. Historically, do you look at Michael Spinks up until he fought Mike Tyson as a more legitimate champion when you look back and see who they both fought? No, you don't. Not unless you're a complete idiot. Again, thoughts and prayers out to Adonis Stevenson, but was he more legitimate than Kovalev or Ward when he was running around fighting people like Tommy Karpency and Thomas Williams Jr.? No, he wasn't. His lineal status was what it was cool, but it didn't make him the consensus man to beat in the division. It didn't. That's the reality of the situation. There are people out there trying to push a narrative, who have an agenda, who are fanboys, who have no ability to remain objective, putting nonsense out on social media, playing semantics with slickly edited videos. It's all a load of rubbish. That's what it is. I stick to the facts. And if you want to take what I've said in today's context with Tyson Fury, he is not the man to beat in the heavyweight division. He's had 2 championship fights. A win over Klitschko, great win. And a draw against Deontay Wilder. How is he the man to beat based on 2 championship fights in his whole career? World heavyweight title fights. What are you talking about? How many world heavyweight title fights has Joshua had? I could tell you it's a hell of a lot more than Fury. We have not yet established who the man is in the heavyweight division. That's the reality. That mantle is up for grabs right now. This is why I'm so desperate to see these guys fight each other. This is why I can't understand this insane mentality that some Wilder fans have and some Fury fans have, whereby they don't even want Wilder or Fury to fight Joshua. They just wish Joshua would go away, and they want to make out as though he's irrelevant in the heavyweight division and that neither Wilder nor Fury need to fight him. These are not real boxing fans. These are not fans who really want to see who the man is in the heavyweight division. No, they're not. Because what they're essentially doing is making an excuse for Wilder or Fury to actually avoid Joshua. That's what they're doing. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Wilder and Fury are scared of Anthony Joshua. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that. But they may make business decisions based upon risk reward, which may steer them away from an Anthony Joshua fight. Or perhaps the people who handle them may steer them away from an Anthony Joshua fight based upon business, risk reward. And so these idiots who are running around and acting like we've already established who the man is in the heavyweight division, these people are basically saying there's no need for any unifications. Let's not have them. So if Fury decides to go a different direction and never fight Joshua and Wilder does the same, no problem. Can't you see how insane this is? Can't you see how fanboyish this is? No, we don't have an established undisputed champion in the division right now. It's a fractured division. Joshua has the most belts. He's got the best resume. But he can't say that he's the man until he's undisputed. And he certainly now can't say he's the man until he also beats Tyson Fury, because Fury Wilder was a very debatable decision. So Joshua's got to beat both of them to be classed as the man. Same goes for the other guys. They have got to beat Joshua to be classed as the man. People running around saying, oh, Fury's the man. It's unequivocal. It can't be debated. What a load of rubbish. What, based on one win and a draw at championship level? Man, take that you-know-what out your mouth. Jesus, people, stop it. Just stop it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here. I'm sure this foolishness with regards to Fury's lineal status will rage on because people have an agenda, and people with an agenda have a narrative to spin, a narrative to push. They're not interested in being objective. They're only interested in playing semantics and lying. When I've said at the start of this video, and it can be verified very easily, many of you have seen the interviews I'm talking about where Tyson Fury came out his mouth and claimed that he's the man who beat the man who beat the man, going all the way back to John L. Sullivan. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. He is either badly misinformed or he's intentionally lying. Conning the fans, as his promoter Frank Warren would say. You decide which it is. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.